Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Commando Cast. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Mike, and today we're going to be talking about Worlds. Hey guys, welcome back. Andrew, first off, thank you for having me back. It's been a few weeks. I appreciate it. I know I haven't been the best filming partner, but I'm refreshed, I'm energized, and I'm ready to go.
Back in the game.
Back in the game, back in the saddle again.
Everybody gave you lots of hugs.
Lots of hugs, lots of inappropriate touching. It was fantastic. That Europeans love to touch, and I appreciate that because I'm kind of a hugger too. So yeah, I love that.
Cool. So what's the deal today? What are we talking about?
So I just want to talk a little bit about Worlds. I got back on a Monday night. I had a couple days to reflect on the experience, and I just kind of wanted to share my thank you with the community, and I also want to spend the time encouraging you, if you didn't make it, to go next year, because it was probably the best organized play experience I've ever had. I've run events. I've been to a lot of events. I've been to big tournaments for Magic, like in Las Vegas and stuff. And there's stuff that, of course, is maybe more efficiently run, but nothing this fun and more really player centered. So that's so. Before I get started, and I have some questions.
So was the OP stuff that you're excited about? Was that FFG or was that the community?
No, I would say the community definitely stepped up as well. Like that was a big part of it. FFG and Matt Holland and all the organized play people, this was their shining moment. Like they had an opportunity kind of in the face of a little bit of adversity with the set being released and some kind of negative feelings in the community. They had an opportunity to kind of make some things right, and they totally nailed it. Like just 100% nailed it. There was not a single negative experience I had as a judge. Or I saw as players. Like I never saw anybody like not having a good time, except for the few people that got disqualified. But we can handle that. We can talk about that later. But no, it was absolutely. The only thing I wish was better, and this is me from my organization standpoint, is I wish the mornings had started a little bit more on time. Like there was some general kind of slowness.
I see.
Like in the morning, like you and I are very on time. Like. People, right? Like but I get bothered by tardiness, and I know you do as well.
But to be fair, we've also been given the feedback before that sometimes we're too rigid on our schedules. Right. So
yeah,
for a larger community, maybe a little bit of slowness isn't.
I mean, when you have 100 people waiting an extra 40 minutes, like for an event to start, and they could be doing something else. Like it's almost like the Disneyland thing. Like if you're not doing something, if you're not like doing, you don't want to be doing nothing. You either want to be in a line somewhere, or you want to be playing Destiny. So that was my only thing that was slightly like not the best it could have been. But even then, after I got to see behind the curtain, right? Because I was judging, and I was helping FFG with the event, and I saw some of the stuff they were going through, which was they had this much larger X-Wing community like show up, and their events take much longer. So there was a lot of incentive to get, if there were dual events happening, X-Wing and Destiny, you wanted to get the X-Wing thing started.
I mean, that makes sense.
Right, because it took so much longer. So yeah, that was my only like even slight critique. So to answer your question, it was both a slam dunk by FFG, and the community really stepped up. The streaming was great. There was commentary, I think, over at least two of the community streams, and it was wonderful. That was like my big, like FFG nailed it. Like
awesome.
Yeah. So
and then I kind of interrupted you.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, I want to say thank you to the people that I met at Worlds. There was a lot of you, Johnny and Andrew. They're from Texas. They're not only kind of OG friends of the channel, but they're now actual like friends, which is like super cool, and I really appreciate that. Some friends from Canada that I met. Chris is not from Canada. Chris is from Wisconsin. Oh, it's close, right? But David, from Canada. Thank you for being so kind. I'm glad you got all your foils. I had just a bunch of people that I got to meet from a bunch of countries. Chris from Wisconsin. Thank you for the beer. I hope you watched me drink it. I did a live stream
I saw it.
I'm not sure what number beer that was, but it was. They were very good. The amber that he brought me, it was the spotted.
Spotted cow.
Yeah, that was definitely my favorite. Like the fruit beer was good. I'm not a huge fruit beer fan, but that was pretty good. But
he made an illegal run across state lines.
Yeah, correct. So I got to drink. I know illegal beer actually tastes better than regular beer. And thank you, Inception. Please remember, when you take over the world, I want to be rich. When you plug me in the Matrix, that's all I ask. So yeah, but yeah, I could spend an hour thinking people, but I know we have a lot of you wanted to ask me some questions about how it went and stuff. So maybe we should start there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that you've already talked to me. You want to actually do a separate episode later about kind of your judge experience and stuff that you learned there. So I'll try to avoid. Yeah,
I don't want to talk about the judge stuff. I want to do an episode mainly about some clean play techniques.
Yeah,
that I picked up
stuff that you learned while judging.
Correct. Yeah, and that was cool. Being on your feet for 11 hours was hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. I walked over 20,000 steps for 3 of the days that I was there, which is much more activity than Mike usually gets. So that was hard, but I got, I felt in better shape than when I left. Like, that's a good thing. But it was a lot of events firing. Like, if you went in at 9 o'clock in the morning, there were pods firing immediately. So that's how the event was kind of the entire event was really centered around pods. So pods started at 10 and pods ended at 8 o'clock.
Meaning the last pod would go at 7:59, or
yeah. So they would do a last call for pods at 8 o'clock, and then they would generally take an hour and a half. So they would normally kick people out, but usually it would clear out about 10 o'clock. At night.
And how did that align with X-Wing about
this? So they would stop the X-Wing pod, I think at 6:30 was their last call for X-Wing pods, and then they were trying to get done as well by 8:30. That was kind of the 8:30, 9 o'clock. They were trying to get it redone, knowing that there was going to be some stragglers, and so there was people who would play pods from morning until night, and they loved it. Like I've heard one of the critiques of the last year's Worlds is there were only 5 pod tables, like 5 pods could be running at once. So some of the wait times were 6 hours
for a single pod.
Yeah.
And then for your tickets,
correct. So this year there were 24 plus tables. They actually had 24 marked off A to Z, 26 tables. A to Z, right?
Who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting? And then they actually had extra tables for overflow. I never saw them get that far. So what I liked about this is people's time was really efficiently used. So you could do a pod. The longest I waited for a pod was 2 minutes. I did 3 pods, and
So how did that work out for you? Just once the main event was done judging, you just slammed them in at night before you went out?
Correct. Yeah. So I had the pleasure
in the evening
of getting off at 7 instead of 9. So I would be done, and then I would get a pod. They were also very very gracious to the judges. At night, things really slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
There was no main event to judge, and then the pods were very easy to judge because nobody really had a question of pods. So 2 of the nights they let us do a judge pod, so all the judges got together and played against one another.
Fun.
And then one of the content creators donated a judge pod prize, like for our last judge pod, and it was Dennis won that, and it was an Asajj. It was some weird Asajj, like for president. Who's Asajj's like?
Dooku, right?
Like maybe it was Dooku, but it was basically a Sith presidential running mate sticker, like Asajj for president, and then it had the other person's name underneath it. Like it was really cool though.
Oh.
Like it was one of the coolest prizes. But someone was nice enough to donate that, and so we had to do a judge pod. And then there were not only were there pods, which was kind of the centerpiece of it, but there was also side events. Mm-hmm. So the main event didn't start until Friday, day 1A. All right, day 1B was Saturday. The top cut was Sunday, right? So, but it started on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. So Wednesday and Thursday there were side events that were like full tournaments. So they had a standard, just like a GQ. Like that was what it was like. They played 6 rounds. I think there were 75 people that played in or in that range. Mm-hmm. There was a 3v3 side event, like where you played as a team against another team. There was infinite 40-40, infinite 40-40 Highlander.
Right.
There was just all kind. They even had a sealed. Although I don't know how that went, but I didn't. I was the way they had it laid out was kind of in length. So the pods were at one end and the main event was at the other. And I was they had tasked me to be towards the top tables of the main. So that's where I was for most of the time. Was doing the standard main event and then the day 1A and B and then the final cut. So that was. So
were people? I mean, obviously some people. The reason it was so long, I'm sure, was because of X-Wing, right? They had their play-in tournament and then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. X-Wing had a full.
And by the way, I don't mean that X-Wing made Destiny longer, but they had the place, so why not? Just
sure.
run
Yeah.
pods, right?
And that's the beauty of it is they already paid for this place,
right?
And they could just do it. And they had a really efficient way of pods where it was like self-service pods. So if you got a pod, they would hand you a piece of paper. And it had a form that you fill out with names, and it had A and B, and on the top of the sheet it said A versus B, A versus C, A versus D.
Oh, so you just filled out the bracket.
You just filled it out, yeah, and then marked the winners, and then you took it back up, and they would go, here's 4 tickets for everyone, and then who went 03, here you go, or who won 2, sure. Right? Who went 2-1, who went 3-0, and then you were in and out. Like even that part was.
How did they handle the? Because pods were $5, which sure. I was shocked. It was $5. Right? I figured they'd be like $10 a pod. But don't tell FG that, so it stays that way. But yeah. How did they handle taking everybody's money?
They just had to register.
So you just
So
you would pay before each pod.
When you went up, if you were like freelancing a pod, so they had sheets of paper out. You would pay, and then you'd write your name on a pod, and then they would like pod. You would see what pod you're in, pod C, and then they would be like pod C to the front desk. They would get you all together. They'd hand you the paper, and then you go sit at that table.
Huh.
It was really easy. Like it was shockingly easy, and because it was shockingly easy, it was vast, and people were doing it a lot. People got to the point where they were trying to grind tickets, so they would get together and go only aggro decks. No stall decks, no control. We're going to play aggro, right? And so they would play
15-minute rounds.
Yeah, they would play these 15-minute rounds, and they would have a good time. FFG doesn't care. They've already printed all the tickets. They've already printed all the prizes.
They just got $40 for it,
right? Yeah, and because of that, those people then lined up and gave them another $40 like right after. So it was just.
I don't see why FFG would care if everybody agreed to the same rules going in. I mean,
right.
Like, a 40 Highlander pod if you wanted to.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah. The competitive teams used Wednesday and Thursday as like a testing day in pods. So pods Wednesday and Thursday were a little more hardcore, but they generally would stay together. Like you wouldn't like. I mean, you're not going to go sit in on the Hyperloops pod unless you like your lunch getting taken. Right by those guys, but I mean they were using that, and I know one of the people that I support is ABG. They actually pivoted from their deck because of their testing during the pods. Like they had their deck made up, they had it figured out, and then after an entire day of testing, like 15 games with it, they're like something doesn't feel right. What are we going to do? And they pivoted to a different deck on that day. Because deck lists were not due until Thursday night at 10, which made for some interesting drinking, because people were trying to fill out their deck list at the bar at like 9:30 on a Google Doc.
Into the last minute.
Right, a lot of people were waiting to lock in those 30 cards.
Yeah.
But I'm much more of a planner. I would have probably had mine locked in Tuesday.
And if you're traveling, like you're not bringing your whole collection, you're probably bringing a sleeve full of alternate cards.
Right. You may have like 3 decks that you're going to maybe coming in and out of, and some spicy tech cards. So, that part was really good.
Cool. So Worlds next year are being invite only. That's obviously gotten some attention, but it has impact from what you were talking about, which I know that us sitting back watching the streams and stuff and watching what was going on the internet, I think like myself and I think a lot of the other people were very jealous of just the pod atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So how do you think that being Worlds or invite only will affect pods?
If they truly only keep it as invite only, that is going to go down. I would probably still go, because I had that much fun. Even if I didn't have an invite, I would probably. And this is based if they just did invite only, no other way to get in. I would probably still go.
So Matt Holland did say on stream in no uncertain terms that they will do a play-in next year.
If that's the case, if they're going to do a last chance qualifier like X-Wing does, there is no reason for every single person to not go. Like,
so you still get your badge, you still have access, and you just hang out all weekend and play pods.
Right. So yeah, if they would probably do that tournament on Thursday. So Wednesday you get in, you play some pods. If you don't have a qualification, you do the last chance qualifier on Thursday, right? If that's the plan. So you have an all-day event on Thursday, and if you scrub out of it, you go play pods, right? If you do make the top, like in X-Wing, it was the top 64 made the World Championship. So if they do the top,
okay.
Yeah, they did top 64 made it. So a lot of players who would normally get to got to. So if that's the case, let's say they do top 64. Most people that do that, I mean, probably a third of the people that do that last chance qualifier are going to,
Sure. Well, and then remember the people people who already have world seats aren't going to be playing in that qualifier.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the cool part. My biggest, so as far as answering your question, if that's the plan, and Matt Holland did.
No, I was watching when he said, and I don't think I'm reaching. Like he was asked the question on this because they were talking about Worlds being invite only. He was asked the question on the Twitch streams, which, like you said, is always just comedy gold.
It's great, yeah.
Although it was a little more well maintained because it was FF2. He was bluntly asked how is this going to work with it being invite only, and I can't quote him, but he in no uncertain terms implied that there was going to be a play-in tournament. Now, obviously, it's not published, so it's published. But
and why wouldn't you if you already had the place
exactly
the place they have, which is the legendary Roy Wilkins Auditorium? It's freaking massive. It is so big, it probably cost them so much money to get this space out. But they had to have it for X-Wing. X-Wing, they cut it in half, right? This entire half was all X-Wing. And it was from one end, every single table, all the way to the end was taken by X-Wing. Destiny was basically the same thing, except in the middle there was a void spot. So there was probably still room for another 300 players to sit down on the Destiny side. So there's no reason why they shouldn't do that. And I believe they will. And I think that's what it would look like. So Andrew and I will go out. If we went, we would do a last chance qualifier on Thursday. We would both make it because we're great players, right? And then Friday then we'd have to pick whether we're doing 1A or 1B. If we went 1A and we made it, then Saturday would be all about going to the Prince, Paisley Place, or maybe we play more pods, or we do side events, or whatever we wanted to do, and then Sunday would be the final. Or a lot of people were doing the other way, so they took Friday to kind of relax, and Saturday they went back to back Saturday and Sunday. I will tell you the way they had the final day set up was we started at 9 a.m. Dice started rolling at 9:45, and they took 0 breaks, not one, and we were there until 9:30, or I think it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock.
I was, because I had to miss round 2 because it was dinner, so I think it was right around 7:30 when we. It was probably right around. Oh no, I was probably right around 7 when Andrew was doing his interviews.
Oh, okay, yeah, it was. It was a long day, and it was really hard on the players. I would recommend that if you decide to go, you should definitely take some friends with you, because if you're in the top cut, you're going to want them to help you sustain calories and water. They were pretty liberal with bathroom breaks, but I thought that was pretty cool. I actually had a guy, Judge, I use the bathroom. I'm like, I don't think you can. I don't think you can leave the table. So I went and asked Nick. Went and asked Nick, and he's like, no, just time it and extend it. So they were very liberal with bathroom breaks, which I thought was at least.
That's on final day when you're playing multiple.
Correct, yeah. Because you're playing hour and a half long rounds, and you when Andrew and David, when they played in the final, that they had been playing for, at that point, 10 hours.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
A stamina. Just even mentally, that would be a long
and they're
time.
3 days in.
Correct.
Or
yeah.
more.
Right. Yeah. And that was no slouch. Like the day, some of those days, like if you were in the top cut, or if you had made top cut, you played through some fantastic players to get there. Unless, you're Edwin Chen, who went 0-2. The former world champion came in. He was a little worse for wear than a lot of people were after a long night of partying. Came in on his day, sleeping at his table before the game started, head on the dice box, went 0-2, and then proceeded to win 6 in a row. Had the lowest strength of schedule that we have seen in any qualifying day 2 person. Apparently there's been some studies on this trying to find regionals that had lower strength of schedules of people making the cut, and so he basically submarined. But I actually think there may be a strategy to that.
Yeah, except that you don't have any leeway in a dice game where you can sometimes just not roll threes.
Yes, the deck that he was playing, I think, had some of the lowest variance in it. Like short of I'm going to delve into the fist with no money, and now I have to make sure I roll like 3 non-pay sides. That was really all the variance in that deck. They were those ABG guys were on an Afra, Dooku, Messenger deck.
Grievous.
Yeah. What'd I say?
Dooku.
Yep.
But yeah. Everybody knew
Grievous,
it. Yeah,
I know.
It's all good.
Grievous.
It's all good.
It was good. Yeah.
It'll only be 2 or 3 comments.
Right. Yeah. So they were on that deck, and that deck just doesn't. I mean, it's a super value based deck where
lots of rerolls.
You're just trying to get Delve and Fist in the same hand. Like that's the end game. Like, oh look, Delve, I'm gonna draw 3 cards. Oh look, Fist. I have $3. I win the game. Thank you.
Hey, fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, so so that's actually one thing that you had been talking about, the team advantage. That's one thing that when Mike came back, he kind of mentioned that to our internal play group. He's like, the people who had team, I don't remember exactly what you said, but basically the team advantage. Because can you, spend 30 seconds on that, and then we'll
there were groups and local groups too, like the Cloud City Rollers went with a large contingent, over 15 people went for them, and they were supporting each other with going to get food when the person was stuck doing the cut, and the Hyperloops are famous for that. They also, you can scout for your teammates. Like on days when you're not playing, you can go figure out who was playing what. So it's just a huge advantage, and it's you can tell it's a huge advantage because these teams are consistently making top cuts. Like they are. It's very hard for just a Maverick to make top cut. Sure. Like you look at the top 8. I would say at least 7 of those people in the top 8 this year are members of some sort of team, either entourage.
But there is a somewhat self-fulfilling prophecy in that the people who are more into it are more apt to join a team or a squad or whatever.
Right.
So but I'm in no way dismissing. I'm just saying that there's advantages, or there's reasons that those people joined that to begin with. They didn't join on day one and like, oh, I need a team for Worlds, and then show up with, Cody clones. Right.
right. Yeah. So. Well, there's also a lot of strength in that group think. Like when you get together with 8 players.
Sure, but that's the 2 months beforehand.
Correct, right. Yeah. Certainly, I mean, if you're going to go, maybe plan ahead of time and get a group of people together who can help you prepare as well.
Right.
I mean, because you don't have to be like massively serious to do well and bring a team with you. Because you could do well, and if you have a team, you're gonna do better than if you're just by yourself. I mean, because you'll have people that you're able to bounce ideas off of, and getting that many people together just makes you better. Like I know when we play, we are Mavericks. Like we play whatever we want, but right before Store Championships, we always do the same thing. We get together for one night, we drink beer, we run the hardest decks at each other, and then one of us ends up winning. I mean, it's just a Store Champ, but we spend 25 minutes preparing, and all of a sudden we're 30% better than we were before.
Yeah.
Imagine if we spent more time.
No, that's where I was just gonna go with that. Yeah. Imagine if we could get aligned and.
Yeah.
But
we just love. We have a nose for junk though too.
We like playing what we want to play.
Right. You can't tell us.
We like playing what we want to play. So fair enough. All right. So before we wrap up, any other big things take away from Worlds? Any other shout outs to give?
No, I think that was that. I think if there's any. The biggest takeaway I had, and aside from the judging part, which again I want to kind of talk a little bit more about that in another cast, but I think the biggest takeaway for me was that if you had asked me a month ago what I thought the trajectory of the game was, it was not a good response for me. Like I love the game, I love the community, but I didn't feel like it was going in a very good direction. I've been on record with saying that sometimes I feel like FFG doesn't care. And I would say that is an incorrect statement after seeing them in action. I know it's very difficult to do what they do in Minnesota they're a small company that has got big, right? Like I now realize that is much more difficult. Are they perfect? No, of course not. But this is a group of people that do care. And a month later, after seeing the community and the energy in the Worlds, I feel much better about the trajectory of the game. Like
that's good.
I feel I am much more. A month ago, I thought this game was dead after set 10.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, I don't think very many people disagreed with you. I think there was a fair amount of us who suspect that October if Worlds is in October, that might be the last support.
The swan song, right? Yeah. And I don't feel that way now.
That's good.
Like
I will tell you, I would have liked to have seen a set announcement at Worlds. So they gave us plenty of spoilers, which is great.
Yes. Super nice, right?
And they, breadcrumbs and all that, but it would have been nice to see a set announcement come out of Worlds.
That would be completely out of character, though, right? Because they've never announced a set prior to a set being released. Like that's never happened, like in the history.
Yeah, I know. It's just trying times. It's a different situation. But I mean, it is what it is. And they have a way to do business, and it works for them because they are what they are. So fair enough.
Yeah, and it was like another thing I talk about Worlds. Just another big thing I took away. If you ever wonder why X-Wing is more popular, if you ever wonder why X-Wing feels like it's more successful than Destiny, and I'm sure money-wise it probably is, I was shocked at the amount of international support that X-Wing had. We're talking like 25 people from Canada, or from Team Canada. And Canada's a big place. It's not like it's one city just crossing the border, right? I mean, we're talking a giant country that sent this many people, like giant contingents from Europe, from England, from Brazil, like all of these places. I think that's the big difference. Because when we go to our local game store, we don't see that many people playing X-Wing. Like, I mean, we do. It's not like it's unpopular, but it doesn't feel any more popular than Destiny to me.
Right. Like, and we also run them on different nights because of the space. Right. But
yeah, I've been in a lot of game stores where on a local of the X-Wing is 6 players, right, or 10 players. Not that big a difference from Destiny, but internationally, X-Wing is an absolute giant. Like that's the only thing I can think of. Like I was just utterly, and that is a ruckus group. Like the OP people had to tell them finally to keep it down. They were like chanting for each other, on stream,
like soccer chants.
Yeah, like yes, it was hilarious. Like skull. I mean, they were like, it was crazy. So that's one of those things. I just think X-Wing is certainly appears to be doing better, and I think a lot of it has to do with international support. But Destiny has a lot of international support as well. But I know they've had issues with fulfillment,
right?
Like in different areas, like in Australia, they've had issues with it, and in South America,
right? And I mean, so John, who gave the Perth report, he was saying that they held their championship, but they didn't have the kit, right? So yeah, I mean.
And that's just I think maybe
it's very interesting to me because Asmodee is a European company, but I realize there's.
Yeah, I don't think they operate I don't feel like they really tell FFG or what to do. I guess they let them operate, and I know that's very difficult. Like customs is hard, the dice are hard. A lot of game companies print cards in the country that they make the game in, or at least so they don't have to deal with that. But when you print cards in China. Or dice in China and cards in China, and then you have to deal with a 2.5 week long boat ride plus customs and Chinese New Year and all the fun stuff that comes along with that. It does I could see that being a lot harder, but
yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know how they run their company, right? So fair enough. But I'm super excited about Worlds. I know a lot of us, at least myself, we were feeling very. Not really jealous because it's a decision we made, but I watched an embarrassing amount of Destiny.
right. I can see you were looking a little heavier than you were before I left. I'm sure there's a lot of beer with your feet up. Over this weekend.
I did pretty well on the weekend. On Sunday, I had some beers. Watch some Destiny.
I drink an inordinate amount of beer. Actually, haven't had a beer since I got back because I'm like, okay, it's probably time to
go for a walk.
Time to reel that in a little bit. Yeah. So like I've been like, oh, okay, let's. Yeah, that was some crazy. There were several get-togethers after each night in the one that actually everybody put together, but I think it was Artificery was the main organizer, and they did the after party on Friday night, and that was the most fun. Like just sitting down with Game Slayer, we debated politics and like it was amazing. And
that's
Johnny,
always good after.
Yeah, no, it was super fun, super guy. Amanda Reynolds from the iRebel Jedi Geek Girl from I think it's iRebel podcast, right? Is that her podcast? Yeah. Sorry, Amanda. Anyway, like we got a chance to sit down and eat hot wings and talk, and Chris from Wisconsin. It was just stupid fun, and hugs and one of the ABG guys like did the whole like spitting White Claw out because he laughed too hard over Mike Jim. Like it was like epic, like slow motion, like all over it was so good, like just so many embarrassing stories. So anyway, if you didn't go to Worlds this year, shame on you. Go. It's super fun. It's probably the most fun I've ever had playing Destiny, and that's saying a lot because I've played a lot of Destiny. So please go. It's not only good for the game, it's good for you, it's good for your friends, and I think you will have a better appreciation. And I will say, I am now a better player now that I'm back than I was before I left.
That's interesting. Good. All right. Well, anything else to add?
No. Go Commando.
Go Commando.